A while back, I shared this logo animation that I did, and a bunch of people wanted me to make a tutorial on this. So I had to put together a full-on recording. So I basically remade this from scratch, and it's a pretty long video. It was actually way longer on the unedited version. So let's get on with this video and make sure you're comfortable and watch the whole process so that you can learn how you can do it yourself. Now in this case, what we have is a PNG image that we're going to use to start. It's not ideal. You ideally want to have an SVG file. That's going to make it a lot easier to animate things, but we can still work from a PNG. So let me just show you from the beginning. The first thing we're going to do is we don't need a background yet, but we can add these. And what I did for these was that I actually wasn't sure about these background color first. So what I did was I used Adobe Color and I grabbed the color of these lemon. So you would do the same for your object if you need a background that has like a matching color. And after I went to Adobe, I just checked a bunch of the different color styles, like the complementary colors and stuff. And that way I could add this background to it. Now that that's out of the way, we can right click and we're gonna open our logo in Fusion, and this is the first step and it takes a little bit of time. So what we're gonna do first is we are going to add a background and we're gonna press Ctrl T, and this is gonna be our base, which is gonna be transparent. Since we're working with this PNG image, we have to separate this image into different layers. So for that, in this case, we have the top section, we have the little leaf section, we have the knife, we have the lime, and we also have this kitchen section. So we're gonna need a bunch of these. Okay, so for the easiest way to do this would be to copy and paste these a couple of times, right? So I'm gonna copy and paste these 2 times, and that way I have a few masks that I can create. Okay, so after that, we're gonna press 2 on this first one, and I'm gonna use a polygon to create a mask for this top section. Since we're not seeing anything yet, we're gonna invert these, and I'm gonna create the mask for this top part. Like that. And we're gonna invert this back again. And in the original logo, this part is transparent. This is white actually. So if you want this to be white, what you want to do is we're gonna add a background color here. And by default, it's gonna go to the top. So we're gonna press Ctrl T and make this be the background. And then we can turn this into white again. And we're gonna add a polygon again to these background, to this section here. Since it's in the background, we don't have to be too careful with these because it's just covering this section right here. And after that, it's gonna look like that. You can get rid of these keyframes because we're not really gonna animate this section. Okay, if we look at these, then that looks fine. And if you want, you can group these, but it's not completely needed yet because there's a couple of more things that we have to adjust, like the knife here, which for that is we're gonna go and select this media in again. And with this selected, we're gonna add a second background here. And we're gonna have to leave these at the top in this case. So we're gonna press Ctrl T again, just so that we can see the green section. And we're gonna add these here so that we have the same color. And then we can just press T again, Ctrl T again, and get rid of the background. And we're gonna add a polygon. And we're gonna create a shape that's gonna cover the knife section. And that's how we fix these and get rid of the knife section. Okay, now we press 2 again and we see everything again. And in this case, we're gonna press 2 on this one so that we can select the top leaves part. We're gonna press the polygon again and we're gonna invert these and we're gonna do the same process. So basically, this is what you have to do for each of these sections. And I'm gonna speed these up a little bit right now, just so that it doesn't take the whole video just to fix these sections and separate these sections, of course. Okay. And now we have that so far. Then we're gonna press 2 so we can see the media out and see if we still need something else. So we're gonna press Ctrl C again to this media and we're gonna paste this here. And we're gonna have to do the same thing for the bottom section right now, okay? So for that, we're gonna create a polygon again. Oops, not there. We're gonna create a polygon with this media section here. And we're gonna select the bottom part. Invert these so we can see everything right now. And there we have that there. and we have to fix this section that had the knife, and not the knife, the kitchen text. So we're gonna do the same process. We're gonna add a background here, and we're gonna invert these and then copy and paste. Well, and then grab the color and create a mask around these, and then press Ctrl D, and now we get rid of that part. Now the next part is to actually create the masks for the knife and the kitchen section. So how do we do this? Now usually if you're not gonna animate the kitchen section that much, we can just create a copy of these here, and basically just connect this here like that. Whoops, not there, but connect these to these, so there's a new merge node, and we're just gonna mask the kitchen section here. So to keep things organized, we're gonna rename each of these nodes. So we're gonna press F2 on this one and make this kitchen, and then we can just group things if you want to make things a little bit easier. So we're gonna select all of these, and we're gonna press Ctrl G and press F2 again, and we're gonna name the bottom lemon or lemon, whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect. And one thing I forgot was that we're gonna have to animate the kitchen text later on in the way I did it. So for that, we're gonna have to animate these merge nodes. So we're gonna leave these at 0 for the blending mode, which is gonna be adjusted later. Okay, after that, we're gonna close this by pressing Ctrl E, and we're gonna have the lime section. So we're gonna press F2 and then lime. And this one also has to be transparent for now. So we're gonna make these blend 0. And then this part is the top part, or the top leaves. So we're gonna break top leaf, and we're gonna have a transform node on this one, and we're also gonna have a transform on the whole top section, right? So these can be its own group, which is gonna be the top section. So we're gonna press Ctrl G to group these and press F2 and then top lemon. And we have pretty much everything set up except for the knife. The knife I wanted to keep separate because it's gonna have its own animation, so I wanted to keep things a little bit more organized. When I worked these, and like when I built these the first time, it was not as organized as these, obviously. And just to keep the tutorial easy for you to follow if you wanted to, that's why I'm grouping things, because otherwise it's a little bit of chaos. Okay, so we're gonna press Ctrl V again, copy this media, and we're gonna connect these to be our knife. I'm gonna press F2 to name these, and it's gonna be named knife. Here we're gonna press the polygon again, and we're gonna create a cut for our knife. And you can see here that there is the green section, and we have to get rid of that, right? Invert this again, and we'll press knife right here. Okay, so to get rid of that green part, we're gonna add a key, and in this case what worked was the delta here. Sometimes some of them work, some of them don't, so you have to experiment. And we're gonna add another delta here. And to get rid of the black section, we cannot use the background color black because it just stays black. So we're gonna go to the reference section and press and use that little picker there. And now we have the knife that is separated. Okay, after everything is in place and we have fixed everything, we can go to the background color, which is something that I forgot to do right at the beginning. And we're gonna change the image resolution to a little bit of a bigger resolution. So it's gonna be 1920 by 1080, because by default it's gonna take the resolution of the image that you were using, which is the 1080 by 1080 image, okay? After that, once you have gotten your inspiration or the reference, I sort of thought of Fruit Ninja when I did these, so that is how I came up with this idea. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the different transform nodes that we need to animate things. And I wanted to bring these closer and be in the middle, so like the lemon is one full lemon first. Another thing that I forgot was that I wanted to keep these texts separated. For that, we're gonna add a transparent background on these, so that acts as the background. And we're gonna go and make these the alpha 0, and that way we can add these here. That way things are a little bit more organized, of course. So the first thing that we're gonna add is a background to the top section. So we're gonna go and add a transform here, and you can name these transform top, and we're gonna copy and paste these for the bottom section and just rename these bot. there it goes. Now we have the two transform nodes and we can adjust things a little bit better. So we're gonna bring these closer, and you can see the lemon is not of the same size right now, so we have to adjust a few things like the size of these ones so that they both match and it looks a little bit more symmetric, like that. And if you see this little black section here, that is from the image that you started. So you can work around with fixing the details here, but I'm just gonna leave it like that for now, just for the tutorial sake. In the original that you saw, I actually took some more time to actually fix that section. So that is a little bit more seamless and it looks like it's just a full lemon, right? Now that we have that, we have to also add another transform node to the top section, to the leaves. So we're gonna rename these transform leaf, and we're gonna set the pivot point of these right there. That way, if we move these, then the leaves are gonna move, because otherwise if we move these, if the pivot point is right at the center and we move these, it's gonna rotate the whole thing, of course. So we're gonna leave these right there. You can also use the grid warp if you want to add a little bit more interesting dynamic moves, but that takes a lot more time and it's not that great, right? So it just takes a lot more time to work with that one too. Okay, now that we have that section, we can add a general transform node to the whole fruit. So for that, I'm gonna go to this merge right here. This is merge 10, and we're gonna have these here. So that way, if we move the lemon, it's gonna move by completely without taking into account all the different sections here. For that, we can rename these, and that's what we're gonna use to animate the actual little jumpy movement of our lemon. And also we can make these a little bit smaller too and adjust the different things without having to adjust things individually in these sections. After that, we can add the transform to the knife that we have here, and that is what I did. So we're gonna put the pivot point of these closer to the handle of the knife if you want. It doesn't have to, but if you're gonna rotate these, it's gonna look a little bit better if it rotates from the handle rather than in the middle. It's actually just personal preference, so it's really up to you, okay? Okay, so make sure that the 0.5 also is where the ending position is. That way it's easier to animate and you don't have to guess in the future. Okay, and then we can just rename these. And now we are ready to animate. So we know the ending position of these, and now we have to animate the movement of this whole thing. First, we're gonna animate the lemon. So we're gonna bring these to be right here. We're gonna make these a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna add a transform or a positioning keyframe here, but make sure that you are at the keyframe 0, and we're gonna go up to frames 15. It's probably not gonna be exactly the same as the one that I did at the beginning, because I did adjust a few things that I'm gonna show you too, because sometimes things can be a little bit slower. So I will show you in a little bit. Okay, so after we brought these lemon off screen, I'm gonna add a positioning keyframe for these and also an angle keyframe, and I'm gonna spin these a little bit. Then around frame 15, I'm gonna bring this up there, and then at frame like 23, 24, I'm gonna bring this a little bit lower. That way it's gonna sort of looks like there's a little bit of gravity and it comes back down. And also I want the angle to be spinning a little bit like that, and then a little bit more. So we have that general movement first of all there, and it stays there. And if you are lagging a little bit, you can go and right click and then decrease the high quality of these. And after that, we're gonna add the first section for the knife. Now, this is all linear still. We're gonna add and adjust the splines later on once we have determined our movement a little bit better. Okay, so we're now gonna animate the beginning point of the knife. Now, the knife started being by looking at the other side. So we're gonna flip these by clicking here. And we're not gonna create a keyframe for this yet, but we're gonna do it later on. Okay, after we flip these, I noticed that we have to adjust the pivot point again, so we're gonna have to do that there, and that's just a simple step. Just move these a little bit to the side, and now we are there. Okay, now we're gonna bring these off screen like we did for the lemon, and we're gonna bring these like that there, and we're gonna add the positioning of the keyframe for the angle and also the position, and then around frame 15, we're gonna bring these higher to around the same section, and we can flip these a little bit like that too, similar to the lemon that we have here. And I want these to be a little bit more pronunciated. Okay, so after we have that little movement, then what you can do is already adjust the splines of these. So we're gonna press Ctrl to select both of these, and we can test things out a little bit. Now the thing with these is that there's a lot of testing. There's no like a press these and that and these happens. You have to adjust things manually a lot of times. So we're gonna press Ctrl A to select everything, and you can press F or S. If you press S, it's gonna be the curve a little bit more smoother. If you press F, then it's gonna be straight at the end when it reaches the position. So let's look at both of them. So that is how it looks with the F curve. And if you press the S curve, oh, I actually had to add the second keyframe for the knife right here and not right at the other one. Okay. Okay, with both of these selected, we're gonna press Ctrl A again and press the S curve so we can check this movement. Looks all right. Okay, so then we're gonna add another keyframe to start the swinging movement of both of these elements that we have here. Now you can start right from 23, or if you want to have a little bit of a pause here, you can leave a few frames. It's really up to you. In this case, I think we're gonna leave a few frames just to try. But if you leave frames, you have to do something, which is we're gonna have to create another keyframe right here to just show the pause that we are taking in between them. Otherwise, it's gonna start having a linear movement right here. Now, what you have to take into account here is that sometimes if you have these pause right like that and press F or S, sometimes they can add another curve that you don't want. But in this case, it doesn't, okay? Okay, after we have that section there, we are gonna add the pause that we have here. And then after that pause, we're gonna add another animation, which is, let's just make these 15 seconds. We can adjust things later on for the timing, okay? And we're gonna animate the lemon coming to the middle. We're also gonna add a size keyframe here at the end and also at the beginning. Since we already have the other two keyframes, all we have to do here is add the ending keyframe, which is gonna be at the center or the default. So we're gonna just put this 0, and this is gonna be 0.5 and 0.5, and then this is gonna be 1 for the size. That way it's gonna be the size of the lemon. Now that we have that there, we can select these things here and press F, and then you can actually ease them in or out a little bit so that the movement is a little bit more impactful, like that. And if you don't like the way this is moving like that, which is on a straight line, the path, on the path itself, you can select this path right here, and you can adjust the curve, the actual curvature of the path like that. So if we press play, now it looks like the lemon is sort of swinging like that. And you can adjust these to whichever way you want. This looks a little bit cleaner, like that movement a little bit better. Okay, now that we have that movement there, we can add the movement for the knife. Now for the knife itself, there's a few things that I did. First, I went to the use size and aspect section and unchecked that. That way we have the X and Y options here that we can change. And to sort of like add a little bit of a special touch with these is what I did is I made the knife a little bit longer by adjusting the X size. So we're gonna add the keyframe for the X size, and then when this knife is moving, we're gonna make this a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna show you that in a second. Okay, now that we have these here, we're gonna animate the movement of these. So I want both of them to be at the side, at the entering position, here at that same keyframe. So it's gonna be at frame 42. So I'm gonna bring these to this side like that. And it doesn't look that great yet because we don't have the angle animated, and it's just like a straight line, obviously, right? So we're gonna add a little bit of movement with our knife by spinning this like that there. And we're gonna add the X keyframe right here, and then make this a little bit longer like that. And then move these there a little bit just to add a little bit more movement. Now the knife is moving. Now we can go to the knife section here and see everything on screen and select them all and press T. Again, if they are not shown, you press T so that you can see the ease in and out option. Press F first, obviously, and then adjust the ease in and out. And now we have that little movement. But we have to adjust the path. First, we're going to select this side and we're going to move these like that. And now it's a matter of actually just trying to match these second curve with the actual lemon here. And that looks like it's going right at in the middle, so it doesn't take that long. So this time it didn't take too long to sort of find out the right positioning for these. And it looks all right. Now the movement of these is not that impactful yet, but we're gonna adjust that later on so that there is a little bit more of like a punchy effect. Okay, after we have that base movement there, we're gonna add the next thing, which is the actual little slash effect that I did. And for that, what I did was I added a green color again. Actually, I added a white color slash, and on this one, I created a polygon, and I just tried to make it look like a sort of like a water drop type of thing. Okay, so we have that there, and we're gonna connect these here so it shows up behind our knife, but it still shows on top of our fruit right here. So we're gonna have to see where the knife starts touching the lemon, and that's where we're gonna position these. So we're gonna select these and move these a little bit like that. And this is the part that's a little bit more manual, okay? And here we have the right click here for shape animation. That means that any change you do when you move a keyframe, that's gonna move, right? So I want these to start at 0. So for that, I actually create a border width and I make these smaller like that. I go 1 frame, make these back to 0. That way it shows up again. And that way I can move these like that. And in this case, you have to make sure that you don't add new points, because that's just gonna make the actual animation a little bit more complicated, right? And then we're gonna add another keyframe here for the center, for the border width, and we're gonna make these a little bit like that and make these smaller so it disappears. Now we have that animation. And if it looks a little bit slow still, we can adjust that later on. But that's going to be the part of retouching it. We have that there. It looks a little bit weird right here when it sort of stops because there's no movement in these. So I'm going to make these a little bit smaller like that. Okay, there it goes. Now it flows a little bit better. It's not that great yet, but I'll have to do. Okay, then on this one, I actually created a glow effect for these so that it glows a little bit. And also I added a duplicate with a time offset of 0.25, I think, or 0.5, maybe 0.25, and it's gonna be negative so that it comes behind, and the size is gonna be a little bit smaller, and you can adjust the position of these if you want a little bit like that, just to add a little special touch. If it doesn't move that fast, you can go to the spline section, go here and press S, and then press T and adjust things like that. So it looks a little bit better. So remember I told you that the knife moves a little bit slow. So what we can do now is to try to fix that section right now already. For that, we're gonna select the polygon selected and the knife selected. And we can see all the keyframes here. And if we select everything that's happening in this section, we can actually use these, which is called the shape box, to adjust the timing of things. So in this case, the knife, we can leave these movement like that, but if you wanted to make these smaller, slower, or faster, I mean, select these and bring these closer. That's gonna bring all the keyframes together like that. And you cannot really do these at the same time, so we're actually gonna keep the polygon out of this one first, adjust the speed of the knife first, and then we're gonna adjust the polygons so that they both match. Okay, so we're gonna bring these closer like that. See, it's a little bit faster. I like that better. Okay, and now that we see the ending point or the first point here is where we want the polygon to start. So we're gonna press the view fit here, or fit to screen, and we're gonna press shift or hold shift to move everything to start there, and we're gonna press the shape box, and then if we drag these to the side, then it moves a little bit better. Now we still have to make a few adjustments here. It seems that because of when we adjusted the timing, a few things didn't go exactly where we want them to be, so we can just go here so that we can adjust the keyframes manually. Now, since we have made the keyframes smaller and tighter, you cannot go and select each of these by moving with the arrows on your keyboard. So you have to use this section right here to actually go onto where exactly the keyframes are located, because right now they're sort of placed in between keyframes and such. So to be able to adjust those things, you have to do that. And this part is going to be really fast already, so it doesn't have to be that perfect unless you really want to take time to fix them manually, of course, like that. And I feel like the other one is taking a little bit too long, so we're going to have to decrease the timing that it takes between them, like that. So there we have that. It's not perfect, but it will have to do for the idea of the tutorial, obviously. Now there's another thing that happened here when the knife slashed through our fruit right here. So this was a little subtle thing, which was a little flash sort of glow thingy, and I did for that is a background. We're gonna make these white, then we're gonna add an ellipse here, and we're gonna have to move these ellipse a little bit, so as the so basically to drag these with the lemon. Since it's only a few keyframes, we can do this manually. So for that, we're just gonna bring these like that closer. And if your background, if you add a new background, by default it's gonna be with the image size. So have to be 1920 by 1080. You'll have to readjust these again. So there we have that. And we're gonna make these soft, really soft like that. We can make these a little bit smaller too, like that too. Okay, so we only want these to appear for a few keyframes, which is when the slash happens. So that's only a few keyframes right here. We're gonna add the position for these, then another one there, like that, and there. So it's literally just 4 frames. And we're gonna have to animate the transparency of these. So only it's gonna happen when there is the knife happening, like going through these, of course. Move these like that. We're gonna start one more so that it's still moving. Okay, here we're gonna go to the merge node of this section, and we're gonna add a blending keyframe right here. Then it's gonna be a 1. And then after that, it's gonna go 2 frames and then it's gonna disappear. That way we'll have the little flash effect. If you want, you can also add a glow node here, or just add an instance. So for that, we're gonna press Ctrl+C to copy this glow, and then Ctrl+Shift+V. That way, any change you make to this glow, it's gonna show up on the other one, and both are gonna have the same amount of glow. Okay, we have that section there. And now the next part is to animate the top and the bottom section, basically separating. Okay, so we're gonna go to 40, which is where the whole thing gets into place. And we're gonna create the first keyframe for the positioning of these 2 sections. And there, and the top part didn't really have any movement, so we don't have to do anything for that. But for the bottom part, we have to return these to 0.5. So we're just gonna leave these, we're gonna make these 12 frames, and then we're gonna move these to 0.5, and that way it's gonna separate there like that. So we're gonna go to the Spline Tool here and press Ctrl+A to select everything, press F to smooth things out, and then adjust the ease in and out option so that it looks like it's moving a little bit like that. Okay, now that we have that movement there like that, we also have to add a reveal for the lime text. We're gonna add a transparency blending here at that same amount of keyframes. So from blend 0 to, I think it started at 42 actually. Yep. So we're gonna add the blending keyframe, and we're gonna go to the ending section here, and we're gonna move these there. If you want to add a little bit of a special touch for these, you can also add a positioning keyframe here. Make these come from sort of like inside the lemon by moving these a little bit higher, and then we're gonna bring these all the way down here to 0.5 there. And one thing I forgot to mention is that right now it's coming from the top. We don't want that. To make it look like it's coming from inside, we have to make sure that this is the background. So press Ctrl T here, and now the lime is going to be revealed behind the lemon. And we have to adjust the spline tool of these so that it matches the sliding section of the transform of the bottom section. Press F here, press T, and then move these a little bit and adjust it like that. There it goes. Perfect. Well, yeah, it's pretty good. Now, when this thing is happening, at the same time this is happening, I want the knife to return to the initial position. So we're gonna have to add another keyframe for the knife. We're gonna create a transform or a positioning keyframe. Also, the size is already back to normal, so we don't have to do that. But we're gonna have to add an angle, and then we're gonna have to adjust the flip also. We're gonna try to hide the flip as the knife is spinning, so I'm gonna add that a little bit later. Then we're gonna go 12 frames here, and the knife is gonna have to be back at its position at 0.5 and 0.5. And then we're gonna have to make these 0. So if we look at these, it doesn't look that great like that. So in this case, I'm gonna rotate instead of 0, this is gonna have to be minus 360, I think. And then it's gonna have to be flipped, so let's check this out. And then from here, I want the flip to happen right here maybe. So we're gonna try to hide the keyframe right here. And then the flip's gonna be there. We're gonna go to the spline section, and we're gonna try to see everything right now. And with these sections selected, let's see what has keyframes in here. I'm gonna select everything, press F, and adjust the ease in and out option like that. I feel like we could add a few more spins to these, so let's try to see if we make these minus 720 instead. It might be a little bit too much, but let's see. Now you can see the knife starts spinning a little bit too slow, and let's see what we can do about that. We're gonna go and try to select only the angle section here and see what it's doing right now. Okay, there it goes. The positioning of it is not exactly perfect by any means, like the rotation, but that will have to do for the tutorials. You get the idea. I can't exactly remember the values from the actual logo when I did it. But if we get rid of everything just to see, I think what we can do to fix that little weird movement is to adjust the pivot point when the flip happens. So here we're gonna add a pivot point keyframe. That way we're gonna have these right there. Whoops. Let's see what that does. That will have to do. We can add a little bit of motion blur to these ones so that it hides that imperfection there. So if we look at these, it's a little bit too much, so we can lower these. Still too much. Okay, we have that there basically. Okay, after we have that there, the next part is to add the reveal of our text, which was right here. So the kitchen text is going to be revealed after that goes into place. So for that, we're just going to add a simple keyframe. That's going to be 10. And then we can reveal that like that. It's a little bit too slow, so we're going to make these 5 and get rid of the last one. Like that. Okay, we have that there. And there's one thing that I didn't do, which is done basically after the whole thing is done, which adds a little bit of a special touch, which is the leaf movement for that, we're gonna have to take into account how the whole thing moves. So we're gonna start with the leaves in a little bit to the side, and we don't want these to be, there it goes. So we're gonna add the keyframe starting at 21, go here at 15 when it reaches its place. After it falls a little bit, move these to that side there, or maybe right here. Now when you're building these, it's all about just testing things out and then seeing what works. Maybe it has to be a little bit like that. And then when it moves, I want this to be at 0 right here. So, but I want these to move when the lemon is having that impact. So when it's having an impact, I'm gonna have to move these to have a little bit more movement right here. There we have that. Now the initial movement of that, it's not that sharp. I don't like that. It's not moving that looks a little bit too stiff, right? But first we're gonna add the transform. We're gonna go to a spline on the leaves. I'm gonna press S to test things out and move and add the ease in and out a little bit. That looks better. I like that better. Okay, here in the transform, we have to check that initial transform movement to see what we can do about this. Let's see. Selecting this initial section, press F, or holding Control, you can adjust each of these curves a little bit more manually. So let's check this out. Yep, that fixed it. I like that better. There's a little bit of a jump there. It's not that big of a deal. We can just leave it like that for now. Okay. And we have our animation right there. And what we gonna have to do for the last part is the falling or returning back of screen section of all of these. Now for that, you can use that same transform, or if you want to keep things a little bit more separated, you can add another transform, which is going to be called just like fall or something like that, just to rename just so that you name what exact action that node is performing. That way you can have a few things a little bit more organized. It does add more nodes to your node tree, but it helps to know that, okay, I want to adjust the fall, so you can just look for fall. So we're going to do that just for the sake of keeping things a little bit more organized. And that way you can also just copy and add an instance for the knife section. That way you don't have to create a new one completely for that. Okay, so first it's going to fall the bottom section. So we're going to add a transform right here, and we're going to add bot fall. There it goes. And here we're going to see frame 75, let's say. I'm gonna add a positioning keyframe and also an angle, and we're gonna break these down to 87 versus 12 frames like that, and we can flip these or make these spin a little bit like that. Okay, it falls and it works pretty great. I like that. Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. We can go to the Spline Tool here and press F to make them small fall and be a little bit more sharp, like there it goes. After we have that, we have to animate the section for the lime. Since we don't want to have to create everything from scratch, we can just copy and paste these and add these to the lime section, which is here. And we're going to rename these lime. And we're going to have to move we're also going to adjust the spinning of these to be, or like the rotation of these, to a different angle, and also the fall distance so that it comes off screen. And then finally go to the Spline Tool and go a few frames forward at 80, let's say 5 frames later, so that there's a little bit of a pause or like a little bit of time between each of this. After we have the lime fall section, you can copy and paste that and add the top section and go and move these to be to the opposite side again, just to keep a little bit of variation. And also the positioning, we have to fix these to be completely off screen. And we're gonna move these a few frames forward. Select everything with Ctrl A and hold Shift. Whoops. There. And there we have that. Now the knife is not falling because it's in a separate little tree. So we're gonna create an instance so that it does the same thing at the same time. So press Ctrl C on this one, but first we're gonna name these top fall. And then to create the instance, we're gonna press Ctrl Shift V. And if we look at these, they both are falling at the same time. Now you can add more details here, like motion blur and such, but that's gonna have to be individually on these transform nodes, and it's really a thing of like a matter of personal preference. So you have to adjust that. For example, if you want the bottom section here to have motion blur, you can just go to settings and add a little bit of motion blur, not too much, so that when it moves, there's a little bit of motion blur. There it goes. So that was the process that I used to go from 0 to 1 basically in this logo animation for this specific case. Now for the sound part is actually just a bunch of trials. You just go to, I think I went to Pixabay and I got a bunch of sound effects and then I mixed them up, and that is how the sound effects were added. I can make another tutorial about how the sound effects were added to these, but that is mostly just a try and experiment process to see what works, and then once you like something you end up with that final result. So yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful, that you found it instructional, and if you got all the way until the end because it was a super long video, then thanks for watching and make sure to give it a like. I hope to see you in the next video here in SUALVI. Bye.